Good afternoon. Thank you for joining me tonight at our Studying in the USA webinar. My name is Basha. I'm one of the Education USA advisors here at the US-UK Fulbright Commission. Before we start, I'd just like to let you know that this webinar will be recorded and it will be available to view next week. So tonight we will cover the basics of studying in the USA, and talk about choosing university, funding, and applying to US universities. So I'll be talking about studying on an undergraduate degree, reasons why you might want to do that, how to think about universities in the US and how to choose them and the process behind that. And I'll also be talking about funding US education and the application process and what that looks like. I will also take some questions at the end, but if you have any questions whilst we're going through the webinar, you could pop them in the Q&A box and I'll answer them at the end. Okay, so first of all, before we begin, what is Education USA? So Education USA is an advisory service that is part of the Education USA network. So it's a US Department state of networks of over 400 international student advising centers throughout the world. And we help international students with how to study in the USA and how to figure out the process behind that. We're based at Education USA, and our center is at the US-UK Fulbright Commission in London. The Commission and Education USA are paired up to help people explore education in the US at the undergraduate level and also at the graduate level. And we also provide awards to graduate students to go to the US as well. And our aim as Education USA advisors is to offer free and unbiased advice to help students in the UK study in the US. So if your dream is to study in the US, we are here to help you out with that. So why study in the US? What's so special about it? Well, there are many different reasons, but some of the top ones are the reputation and variety of US universities. So there are over 4,500 US universities that offer undergraduate degrees in the US. Now that's compared to about 120 here in the UK. And within that 4,500, there is a huge range of different styles of universities and different personality of universities. The US universities are also known for their reputation, and they have a full range of programs on offer, and they also produce groundbreaking research. Now, we'd advise when you're looking at universities to focus on fit, as this will allow you to find many high-quality universities that you may have never even heard of before. And I'll talk about fit a bit later on in this webinar as well. Now, going to the US gives you the opportunity to experience a vibrant campus life and different activities. So US universities are known for having a lot of things going on in their campus, and they encourage students to be involved outside of the classroom and join various activities that are on offer. So there's different extracurricular involvement and activities, for example, music or a cappella. You might be able to find dance clubs, various different sports, and even random things like log rolling, which University of Wisconsin offers to students as a club. Going to the USA gives you an opportunity to study in the liberal arts program, which focuses on teaching. Now, this is a top attraction for UK students, as US universities follow the educational ideal of the liberal arts curriculum, and they look at a well-rounded education. What that means is that it gives you flexibility to explore various interests before you actually select a major. The universities have emphasis on teaching, and they have very engaging classroom environments as well. And you could take a combination of different study topics. For example, you could do engineering and art, or history and sport, or really any different combination that you feel like taking. Now, there are very different students that actually switch from different majors when they started. So for example, you might find students start with studying engineering, and they take a class in a different topic, such as global gender studies, and they actually change their major then and there. Now, in the US, you actually have the chance to do that. So you don't have to pick a major when you start in your first year. There's also a lot of funding opportunities, which might surprise some of you, but this is actually another top reason for studying in the US. Now, I will discuss this later on, but keep in mind that there are many opportunities to find variety of scholarships in the US as compared to the loan-based program here in the UK. Going to the US also gives you the chance to internationalize your CV. So studying abroad is very appealing to employers nowadays. It shows boldness to do something different. It shows that you have various interpersonal skills and that you also have experience in cross-cultural communication. It also allows you to build networks of friends and professional contacts around the world as well. And many students actually take on different job opportunities that are on offer at US universities. So as an international student, you could work 20 hours a week during term time and up to 40 hours a week during holidays on campus. And then you actually get a chance or an opportunity to work up to 1 year after graduation in the US as part of your student visa and your student degree there. Going to a different country also gives you a chance to learn about a new culture. Now, this is one of the top reasons for going there, as you get to learn about the US and its culture. So the US is a very big country. It spans across 6 different time zones. It has a great diversity in both geography and cultures as well. You get long summers, holidays. You get long summer holidays to explore the USA, and living on campus will help you to get to know different US cultures, learning from your classmates, your roommates, and other students that live on campus. So what are some of the key differences between the US and the UK? The first one is that the duration of a bachelor's degree is different. So typically in the US, the bachelor's is a 4-year degree compared to a three-year degree here in the UK. The admission is also different. So the admission is to the university as a whole. You don't apply to a particular academic department, and this reflects the liberal arts system in the US. So what that means is that you don't have to choose a major until later on in your first year, or sometimes even in your second year. And this is compared to the very course-specific degree here in the UK, where you have to apply to a specific degree at a university in the UK. There's also less government control in the US, and what that means is that there's more institutional diversity and freedom for universities to do whatever they'd like. But what that also means is that there are no set fees or centralized admissions process like here in the UK. So universities are allowed to set their own fees, and they're allowed to choose their own admission process as well. The application process is also slightly longer. It's more in depth because the admission process is more holistic, and the universities look at more than just your grades. So the application process is longer for that matter. You also apply for funding alongside your application for admissions and not after you're admitted. And there are some exceptions in studying in the US. Law and medicine are both studied at the postgraduate level. So you cannot study law or medicine in the undergraduate level in the US. There's also some terminology differences between the US and the UK. So the US high school, or years 9 through 12, they correspond to UK secondary schools. So year 10 through 13 in England and Wales. 11 through 14 in Northern Ireland, and S3 to S6 in Scotland. College, university, school, and institution, they all mean the same thing, and they basically mean university. So if someone says they're going to college, it doesn't mean they're less qualified. College is actually the most common term used in the US for university. You will have various classes or courses, and those are equivalent to UK modules. And your degree program or your degree major is the same as a UK course. Now, these are helpful to know when you're researching programs and schools and just looking at universities overall in the US. So what is the timeline for the application process or the process overall? So we recommend that you actually begin to research universities between 12 to 18 months before enrollment. So that's typically at the end of year 12. You will then register for any required admission exams and aim to take those in the summer after year 12. Now, keep in mind that a lot of universities do not require admission exams, but some do. So this is kind of an important step as well in the timeline process. We recommend that you finalize a selection of where you will be applying to in early autumn of year 13. So that's about 10 to 12 months before you plan to enroll. So I will also go over strategies of how to do this later on. And about 8 to 10 months before enrollment, so that's basically autumn of year 13, you will start putting together an application and you will submit it according to the deadlines. Now, it's important to remember that universities will have different deadlines for their application. So it's not going to be like here in the UK where you have one set deadline. Universities will have varied deadlines as well. Now, in the spring of year 13, or around 4 to 7 months before enrollment, you could expect to hear back from the universities that you apply to with their admissions decision. And based off of where you were accepted, you should notify universities of your decision and apply for your visa. And that's about 1 to 3 months before enrollment. Now, with the visa, as sometimes it takes a long time to actually get a visa appointment, we kind of recommend that you apply for your visa about 3 months before enrollment, as long as you have accepted your offer to a university and you received the correct documents. Now, we have various resources on our website that will help you with your pre-departure, including some travel advice, what the living arrangements look like in the US, what the campus life looks like as well. And you will typically start university around mid-August to early September. So this is slightly earlier than in the UK, where you will usually start at the end of September or mid-September. Okay, so now that you know the timeline, how do you choose a university? So choosing is one of the most important steps in the process of applying to the US university. And this is something that you want to spend some time on. Now, the top tip is to spend about 90% in researching and choosing the universities you will apply to, and about 10% on actually applying in terms of this process. Now, it's very important that you think through this step, and the key is to be very flexible and open-minded. Like I mentioned before, there's 4,500 universities in the US, so the choice is massive, and it might be a daunting process for you to narrow down your prospects when you get started, but the goal is to research and find a great fit university for you and to start to narrow down the lists. Now, it's important to know the context of the US as you consider applying to the US to the US universities, and choosing which institution you'd like to apply to. So as I mentioned, there is no national standard for US universities. So universities are free to choose their own sets of fees, their course structure, their student environment. They can make up rules as they go. Unlike UK universities, where institutions have set fees, they have fairly similar environments, similar fees, etc. So that means there is so much variety and diversity of US institutions in the US, and it can seem daunting. It's actually a great thing to know that with so many universities and so many different types, there is bound to be a university that is a good fit for you. So we recommend that you be open-minded when you do your research and you actually spend some time to get to know each university and also identified what's important to you. Now, I will talk about funding a bit later on, but I just want to plug it in here because if funding is important to you, then this needs to be considered from step one of the choosing process. So you only want to be applying to universities that offer financial aid to international students if funding is important to you. And I'll talk more about this, but keep in mind that this is very important already in this step of researching universities, as there's a lot of universities out there that do not offer financial aid to international students, so they should automatically be off your list. If that makes sense. And a final note, you are allowed to complete your UCAS applications along the US applications. It doesn't have any effect on one or the other. Just be mindful of all your deadlines. Okay, so I've been talking about this fit. What is the fit? So the first step in choosing this process is to locate what factors are important to you. So we focus a lot on the term fit. Okay, so finding what school and program is going to be the best fit for you and your personal and academic interests. So there are many different factors to consider, both in and out of the classroom. For example, you want to be looking at the types of programs and the departments that the university has on offer. What's the location of the university? The availability of funding. Like I mentioned before, some universities will now not offer any financial aid to international students. What is the campus size life? What is the campus life like? What about the academic environment? Do you want to be at a university that's rigorous and competitive, or do you want a university that's very inclusive and supportive? So those are some of the factors you might want to think about before starting your research. Now, if you look at the factors, it's important that you prioritize these. Is there maybe a particular sport you want to be a part of when you go to university, or a particular course that you definitely want to take, like engineering? Maybe you don't like the cold and snow. So the East Coast might not be the best fit for you, as it gets really cold there in wintertime. Maybe one of the factors is that you're trying to save money whilst you're there. So living in an urban place will definitely be more expensive than living in a rural place. So where is the university located? Is it in a big city, or a smaller town where it's going to be less expensive to live? So this part of the process is all about understanding yourself and what you want from your experience at university. Also, what you need for your experience. You want to be assessing the universities to see if they match the things that you are looking for. So make a list of the factors that are important to you. And you might even want to rank them, from the highest, most important one to the lowest one, where you could kind of live without it if it doesn't exist at the university. So we also, at this point, encourage you to think beyond rankings, but to look at the variety of factors that are on your list. Rankings in the US are not the same as in the UK. They work completely different, and I would even argue that they're not useful when determining if a university is good or not. So the way US universities are ranked is that they don't necessarily rank the teaching or the graduate prospects. Some universities ask other universities to peer rank themselves or each other. So when you're looking at rankings, take those with a pinch of salt and look at the fit and those factors that are important to you instead. And also apply to universities that you really research and are part of your fit. If a university doesn't fit in with what you want, you're kind of wasting your time applying there. And also, if you go there, are you really going to enjoy being there for 4 years? Okay, so now that you decided what factors are important to you, the next step is to use that information to begin researching the universities. Now, unlike UCAS, you are actually not limited to applying to 5 universities. So in theory, you could apply to as many as you like. However, for time and financial reasons, we actually recommend that you apply to somewhere between 6 to 10 universities. And to jumpstart this process of choosing, you want to focus on narrowing down the 4,500 institutions to a list of about 10 to 20 schools that you think could be a good fit for you. Now, how do you go about doing this? Well, on our website, we actually have different resources on the choosing section of our undergraduate guide. And this includes a list of links to search engines that help you with this process of narrowing down your choices of universities. And I'm going to show you an example of one and what the process looks like. So this is one of the search engines linked on our website called Big Future College Search. And there are a variety of filters you could use, including the type and size of school, location by state, what majors are on offer, what campus life is like, etc. And this is where you will apply all those factors that you were thinking before. Now, it's important to note that if funding is important to you, within the affordability filter under financial need met, you need to select the percentage of funding that you will need, and then click Aid for International Students. Now, you always want to check the information that is given on this website, on the university website, just in case anything was updated or changed. Now, without any filters, there are over 3,600 universities listed on this website. So I have put in a variety of different filters to narrow down our list of schools. So I put that I wanted to attend a 4-year school with less than 9,000 students in the state of Ohio that will meet 100% financial need for international students. And that brought the 3,500 down to 4 universities, which is way more manageable for me to research more in-depthly than when I started. So you could then, from that website, go to each university profile to find information such as application deadlines, a link to their website, what their graduation is, cost, etc. And you could also further down details like size of the institution, the average financial aid package. And you could also click on options to the left to get more information like campus life, majors on offer, process of applying, fees, etc. So there's lots of different information provided on this website. Now, if I go to the Denison website and then go on their homepage and click apply and select international application, I get this information. So you could tell here that Denison has 16% of international students from over 50 different countries. And Denison is has a test optional admission, which means you do not have to take any ACTs or SATs to apply to Denison. There's also no fees to apply to the university, and they don't require a supplemental essay to apply, which I'll touch up on that a little bit later on. And then you see other information on the right-hand side as well of the website. Okay, so once you narrow your options and you research them further on the university website, make sure that you reach out to the university directly. So the goal is to select about 6 to 10 institutions where you will actually submit an application. Now, We suggest that you apply to 2 reach schools where you will be thrilled to attend, but it would be a challenge for you to get in. Now, keep in mind that if you're applying to ultra competitive universities, such as Yale, Stanford, MIT, or Caltech, these are reach schools for everyone that applies there. We suggest that you apply to 3 to 4 match schools where your profile is roughly on par with their average applicant. And each university will have that information on their website. And then 2 likely admittance schools. So think of your like UCAS insurance choice, where your application will be very competitive. Now, the best place to find the most up-to-date information is the university website, as they update it regularly as well. And on each university's website, you could also look to see what the average profile of their admitted applicant is, and you could kind of compare what your profile is compared to their average student. You could also find more information on things like the programs, the campus life. They will have virtual tours of their campus. You will find information about what the student life looks like, what kind of sports they have on offer, what student housing looks like, what financial aid they offer to international students as well. And make sure you do check out what resources or what additional resources they have for international students as well. We also recommend that you actually look at each university's social media profiles, as this could give you a good idea of what the feel is at each university. You might be able to feel out what the university personality is and what they're focused on as well. And keep in mind that US universities want to hear from you. Reach out to them, reach out to the international admissions counselors, either call them or email them. A lot of them have Zoom appointments available on the website where you could just book a Zoom appointment with an admission counselor to talk to them about their university, about the fact that you're interested to applying there, if they could give you any information or if you have any specific questions. But make sure it's the student calling and not the parent, as they want to know and hear from the student that's applying to the university. Okay, so I'm going to go through some examples of different colleges or universities that you might find in the US that you probably have never heard of. And this is why it's important to kind of keep that open mind and do your research, as there are a lot of different universities in the US that, like I said, you might have never heard of. So the first one is Middlebury College. Middlebury College is a small liberal arts college in Vermont, in northeast of USA. It has really lovely summers, hot summers, and very cold winters, but it has its own ski mountains. So if you're into your outdoor sports, if you're into skiing, Middlebury College might be the place for you. It's well known and focuses on languages, also climate change and climate science, and it has the top climate change professors teaching there. So it's a small university with focus on undergraduate studies. What that means is that there are no graduate students at Middlebury College, and students have lots of access to their professors, and they could form relationships with them as well throughout their 4 years there. Now, this is an example of a top university that you might not have heard of, which is super selective to get into. Okay, the next one is Scripps College, which is located in Claremont, California, just outside of LA. It's a liberal arts college with top professors. It's a college for women or female identifying people only. And it's a space for women to find their voice. So it has great programs such as museum studies and conservation. And it's also a part of a consortium of 5 universities. So 5 universities share the campus, which is Scripps, Harvey Mudd, Pitzer, Claremont McKenna, and Pomona. And students might go to the same class, but they might be from one of those 5 institutions that I have mentioned. And each of the universities, the 5 different institutions, has a very distinctive identity. So you'll find different people on campus from 5 different schools that basically can take the same classes as well. So it's very diverse liberal arts college. And the last one is Vanderbilt University. So this is a much bigger university in the middle of Nashville, Tennessee, which is the home of country music. The campus has a very vibrant campus feel. It has lots of cultural and art things happening around the campus. The campus is still very green and it's close to downtown Nashville. It has a lot of research hospitals and a very big engineering program as well. It has a big university feel. So, you know, as I mentioned, each university will be completely different and it will definitely be a good fit for somebody. So that's why researching the universities to find the best one that's the best fit for you is very important in the choosing process. So just a quick note on the Ivy League, as we hear this a lot in the UK. And when we actually at Education USA hear about this, we kind of roll our eyes because it's a very unhelpful description. So you might not know this, but the Ivy League actually refers to a sports league that was formed between the 8 oldest universities in Northeast USA, because they couldn't drive, because they could drive to play sports against each other. So the Ivy League is not in any means equivalent to the Russell Group. There's no becoming the Ivy League. Lots of universities that people think are in the Ivy League are not. So like MIT, Stanford, UCLA, they are not Ivy League universities. There's only 8. All universities in the Ivy League are private research universities. They're very specific type. If you're focusing on these, you are limiting your opportunities to explore other institutions such as liberal arts colleges, women's colleges, or even specialist institutions. They are all extremely competitive. So some Ivy League schools have 1 to 2% admissions rates. So beware of the competition compared to Oxford, which has an 18% admissions rate, and Cambridge has a 21% admission rates. So just keep that in mind. The other thing to think about is that the top 1% of universities in the UK is 1 or 2 universities. Now, the top 1% of US universities would be over 40 different institutions. So just be open-minded, and just because you haven't heard of a university doesn't mean it's not a good university. So don't limit yourself in your research. Okay, funding your studies. Funding is one of the top things we get asked about. And in this section, I'm going to run through the costs you could anticipate, the different sources of funding that's available and that you could pull from, and the strategies you could implement to find funding. Okay, so what costs can you expect, or should you expect, when applying to the US? The first cost to consider is the application expenses. So some universities might require you to take admission test scores like the SAT or the ACT, and the current cost is between $100 to $200 US. Now, each university will also have an application fee. Now, some universities do offer fee waivers for the application. Most applications are between $50 to $100. You will also have fees for your visa and your embassy appointment, as well as your SEVIS, which is an international student database that the Department of Homeland Security uses to attract their students, international students. The next cost are the tuition and fees. So as I mentioned before, costs can vary significantly since each university can set their own tuition and fees. Fees are mandatory, and they usually cover things like student union, school athletics, memberships to a gym, things like that. Keep in mind that there's a big misconception about funding, and do not be put off by the sticker price. So in the US, the cost of attendance actually includes things like the tuition and fees. It includes room and board. It includes personal expenses, and sometimes they even include things like cost of flights home. Now that's compared to the UK price, which is just the tuition and fees. So the UK price doesn't include any room and board, any other personal expenses or anything like that. And the third cost to expect is the cost of living and other expenses. So whilst cost of living may include room and board and some expenses, you still have to consider other living costs like health insurance, eating out, buying new clothes, or even things like entertainment. And keep in mind that cost of living can vary widely depending on where your university is located. So cost of rent, if you live off campus, will be different. If you need a car, you might have to consider extra costs for that. Things like car insurance, petrol, etc. Now, the good news is that there are a variety of funding opportunities available, and it is possible to have an affordable US university education. And many students are actually able to fully fund their studies without loans. The key is to be willing to put in the time and effort to seek out and apply for funding. Okay, so where does this money come from? I'll go more into details for each of these sources, but it's good to know that there are typically 4 sources of funding for US study that you could pull from. So the first one is personal or family funds. Now, in the US, universities will expect families to prioritize students or their child's education and invest in that education. So families start saving up for their child's university education from a very young age. And they are expected to pay something to fund their education. The second source of funding are US universities. So there are 2 types, which is need-based aid and merit-based scholarships, which I'll explain on the next slide. And the university type aid will vary university to university. So once again, if financial aid is important to you, you will need to look for and apply only to universities that offer financial aid or scholarships for international students. There's also external funding bodies, which I'll explain in a little bit. And the last source of funding is loans. However, we advise that loans be your final resort. You cannot take your UK student loan to the US, and US-based loans require you to have a US citizen or permanent resident co-sign the loan. Excuse me. You could take a UK third-party loan you could take a UK third-party loan, but we actually caution against that because usually they come with really high interest rates, and you usually have to start paying it back straight away. Now, if you have US citizenship or dual citizenship, you could take out a loan and apply to federal loans by completing what's called the FAFSA form, and we have information about that on our website. Now, it might be that you have to pull from a combination of these different sources to fund your education. Okay, so university funding. University funding is actually ideal since it does not have to be paid back. And there's 2 types of university funding. There's need-based aid and scholarships. Now, university funding is likely to be awarded on the basis of financial aid, which is need-based aid, and it's based on your family's annual income, or academic merit. So that's based on your A-level marks or admission test scores, or niche criteria such as sports, so sports scholarships, or maybe a combination of both. Now, there's different types of aid available at US universities. Need-based aid is based on financial need, and universities calculate what your family can contribute for you to go to US university, and they compare that to the total cost of attendance, and then they try to meet the gap. So what that means is if a university costs $50,000, and for example, your family can afford to pay $5,000, the university looks at the $45,000 difference, and they try to meet that gap. So they try to give you the money in order for you to be able to go to university. Now, the gap, so the difference between the $5,000 you can afford and the $50,000 that it actually costs to go to university, is going to vary by university. So some universities will cover 20% of that gap, some will cover 80% of that gap, and some might actually cover 100% of that gap. So look for this information whilst you're doing your research if you need that funding to go to the US. Now, as you investigate funding, you will also want to watch for information about whether the university makes scholarships available to international students as well, because not all universities will offer that. There's also sports scholarships that may be available through the athletic recruitment process for top athletes. We do have some information about athletic scholarships on our website as well under the funding page. Now, for more information on university funding, be sure to check each university's website. Be proactive to find this information and the information that you need. And keep in mind that often the process for applying for financial aid or scholarships is straightforward, and it's usually integrated into the admission applications. So a lot of the times universities will just have you check a box saying, I want to apply for financial aid. Some universities might have a separate application for financial aid or scholarships, but that information you should be able to find on each university's website. Okay, so as an example of what this process will look like, I'll go to the Rice Financial Aid page. So Rice University is in Houston, Texas. It's a very well-known university, especially for space and engineering. It has very strong links with NASA, and it's also a private university. Now, this is a breakdown of their 2020-2023 cost of attendance. So as you could see, it gives you a breakdown of not just the tuition and room and board, but it includes the fees, books, and personal expenses such as flights home. Now, they also mention that the average freshman, so first-year student, aid package is $53,000. Which means the family picks up about $18,000. Now, when they say sticker price, this is what I mean, but think about the financial aid as it could make a big difference. So it went down from $74,000 to $18,000 if you apply for financial aid as a first-year student. Now, this is still on the Rice website, and it's a merit-based scholarship. So it says that merit-based scholarship recipients generally distinguish themselves scholastically and personally, even within our highly competitive group of admitted students. So past recipients have included political community service leaders, math science competition winners, creative performing artists, scholar athletes, exceptional writers, etc. And it says all admitted freshman applicants are automatically considered for merit-based scholarships, so that no separate application forms or interviews are necessary. And it says the Office of Admission notifies scholarship winners at the time of admission to the university. So as you could see, this gives you a list of past recipients. You could see who they are. And it also tells you that it's integrated into the admission process. So that means you do not have to complete a separate application. You're automatically considered as a first-year student as part of your normal application to Rice University to receive this merit-based scholarship. Now, also further into the Rice university website, there's also a page with funding information specifically for international students. So note that international students are also considered for need-based aid, and 100% of demonstrated need is met with grant aid. So they use the CSI profile to gather information about a student's financial background to determine their financial aid package that will be given to each student. Now, it's important to check each university website and if funding is available for international students. So it always breaks our heart when someone reaches out to us and they share that they got into their dream US university, but they actually didn't realize that they do not offer funding for international students, as there's not much we could do at that point. So once again, if funding is important and it's an important consideration, you definitely want to make sure that there is funding at the university that you're applying to for international students. And be sure to check into this early, and make sure you look for the funding information for first-year applicants and also international students as well. So I mentioned external funding bodies as a source of funding. So external funding bodies may include a wide range of professional, charitable, or government organizations that are completely external to the university. So they could be kind of thought of as niche scholarships that are on offer, as they usually have specific criteria based on the mission of the funding body. For example, they might be giving scholarships for students from a particular country of origin or a particular ethnicity, or maybe a particular interest, or maybe interest in a particular field, or maybe a particular talent that they're looking for. For example, there might be a scholarship for women engineers from an engineering firm, because they want to encourage more women into their field, to study their field. So if you are unique in any way, there is likely a funding body with scholarship out there for you. You just have to find it. A good example is the Moorhead Kane Scholarship. So the scholarship is for leadership, character, scholarship, and physical vigor. And it provides a 4-year fully funded educational experience for students of the highest caliber at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. So this is a scholarship that offers funding for 4 years at University of North Carolina. And it's funded by an external funding body. Now, there are thousands of funding bodies, so searching for a scholarship that fits your criteria will require time and dedication. And you also have to submit separate applications to each body. So for this reason, we actually encourage that students first apply for university funding opportunities and then for external funding if necessary. And we do have a link on our website to scholarship search engines as well. Okay, so we've talked about how to find the money. Now I'll talk about 3 different approaches to funding strategy. So you could explore, the first thing you could do is to look at cost of living. You could explore universities in places with a lower cost of living. So same as here in the UK, where London is more expensive than Lancaster, for example. New York and California are going to be more expensive than states like Ohio, Georgia, or Michigan. And American universities, as you've seen, will list on their website the full estimated cost of attendance. So that's tuition, fees, and the cost of living and personal expenses. So from the start, you could actually scope out places with lower cost of living when you're doing your research. You could look at programs with lower tuitions, usually state schools, so universities that are sponsored or are funded by the state will cost less than private schools, so private universities. And the third approach is to look at the different funding opportunities that are available. So university funding, external funding bodies, as well as some personal funds as well. Another way to save money is to look at community college or community colleges. So community colleges are becoming increasingly popular choice in the US as an alternative pathway that could help you save a lot of money. Now, they generally award what's called an associate's degree, which is actually not a degree that's offered in the UK, but it's a degree that often has a professional or vocational focus. They also have programs that allow students to follow what's called the 2+2 transfer pathway. So what that means is that you would start your studies at a community college and you would go there for the first 2 years, and then you would transfer to a 4-year university and complete the second 2 years. And you will then receive a bachelor's degree from that 4-year university. Many community colleges have transfer agreements with 4-year universities. So, for example, Los Angeles Valley College is a 2-year community college, and it has partnerships with universities like UCLA, University of Southern California, and Cal Poly. I actually went to a community college in Michigan. I decided to go there because I got a basketball scholarship at the community college. And basically, I got my first 2 years of university completely free. The community college I went to was quite big. It had 2 different campuses on different sides of, in 2 different actually cities, big sporting culture. And I really enjoyed my time there and saved quite a bit of money as well, because I actually stayed and lived at home. So it was a great experience for me. And it's something, if you do want to save a lot of money, it's actually a great pathway to do that. So community colleges are much less expensive than 4-year universities. You could actually save thousands of dollars by paying the significantly lower tuition of community college for the first 2 years of your 4-year degree. Community colleges also have smaller class sizes, which could be valuable for the introductory classes that you take in your first 2 years, and you get more contact with your professors as well. They also generally have less rigorous application processes and the entry requirements than a 4-year universities. So students with BTech or OCR or other similar qualifications can apply to community colleges. And many community colleges do not require any additional exam scores for admission, or admission scores for admission. You could find more information about community colleges, including links to our community college webinar as well. Okay, so since some funding tips, since applying for funding is simultaneous to the admission process, you actually want to begin your research for funding early. So it will take time to research funding at the schools where you want to apply to. And also it will take time to explore external scholarships as well. The best funding resources are the university websites itself, as they will offer up-to-date information on funding available to international students or scholarships to international students, and also online scholarship searches. We have a list of those on our website as well, so it's worth looking at. It's also important to consider having a funding strategy. So as I mentioned before, to fully fund your studies, you may need a combination of all the different types of funding that we've discussed. So family funding, university funds, maybe some external funding bodies, or maybe even a loan. So you want to investigate each type of funding straight away. But as I mentioned, make sure that you research university funding first for international students, as that will probably give you the most money out of the different funds available. And the most important tip is to remain flexible in choosing universities. So make sure that you don't just apply where thousands of other UK students apply, or where you will not be competitive. So the reason we have the fishbowl there is because you could be a small fish in a big pond, like the fish on the left, and apply to the known universities where all the UK students apply to. Or you could be a big fish in a small pond and apply to universities where maybe they've had 1 or 2 UK student before in their past, and they're looking to, have another UK student attend because it looks great for them and they want to expand their campus and be more diverse. So keep that in mind when you're doing your research and looking at those finances that are available for international students. Your application will stand out at a school that has had very few UK students apply to, or maybe even you're the first one, as opposed to one where all the UK students apply to year in and year out. Okay, so now that we talked about funding, let's look at what completing an application looks like for US universities. So what are the universities looking for in your application? The first thing they're looking for are your academics. So these are your academic achievements, which are measured by your results. So your GCSEs and A-levels or the equivalent. And they might also look at admission test scores if those are required. Now you could check, like I mentioned before, you could check on each university's website for the average applicant profile and see how you compare. But keep in mind that academic achievement alone will not guarantee you entrance to competitive US universities. The admission process is much more holistic than in the UK. They will also look at your academic fit. So they will look at the reasons for pursuing a degree at their institutions and how it helps you towards your goals. So for example, you want to be in New York, but why are you applying to NYU over Columbia? Is there maybe a particular program that NYU has on offer that Columbia doesn't? Or maybe there's a campus activity that is available at one university and not the other. Or maybe NYU has a particular mission that you feel strongly about that Columbia doesn't. So academic admission counselors, when they read your application, they want to find out why you chose their institution over the one that's in the same state, maybe even down the road. They will also look at your extracurricular activities, which is a big focus in the US. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to do everything under the sun, but it's important to highlight what you're involved in outside of the school. They'll also look at things like personal attributes, as once again, this is a holistic admissions process. And universities are always looking to diversify their campuses and classrooms. So they want to know who you are. They want to know what your interest in or if you have a specific interest in an academic field, what your character is like, if you have any leadership abilities. They look at the application as a very holistic process. Okay, so what are the application components? The first one is the application form itself. So unlike the UK, you actually apply to each university individually rather than a centralized body like UCAS. And you could apply to as many universities as possible, but like I mentioned, for time and cost purposes, we actually recommend that you apply to 6 to 10 schools. Now, some universities will use something called the Common Application. And this is just a system to help streamline the demographic aspect of the application. So this is not like UCAS in that you will still have to tailor all of your applications to each university. And you will be asked different questions from each university. And you might also have additional questions or supplementary questions for some universities that you will have to answer. As I mentioned, there's no standard process for applications. Deadlines will be different, and each university might have different requirements. This will vary university to university. Some might ask additional questions. As we saw, Denison doesn't ask any supplementary questions, so they just have their application. You do not have to answer any additional questions that they ask. I know University of Chicago has supplementary questions, and you have to answer, I believe, 2 questions out of like a pool of 10 different questions. You have to answer 2 additional questions to apply to their university. So keep in mind that each university will set its own deadline and application requirements. So it's important to keep track of what you have to submit for each university and by when. Most applications will follow a very similar format, and you might be able to reuse or adapt the materials you prepare for each of them, but just make sure that you double check what you write for each university. Most applications will include things like application form with the basic demographics, your admission test scores, if applicable. You will need to submit a transcript. You might be asked essays, 2 to 3 essays. You will have to submit 2 to 3 letters of recommendations. And finally, there's an application fee of between $50 to $100 per application. But some universities can waiver that fee, so you might not need to pay it. Okay, so admission tests. What role do they play? There's no set national curriculum at secondary school level in the US, so admission tests are a way to evaluate applicants from diverse areas and schools. Now, make sure that you check if these are required to the university that you're applying for, as a lot of universities are what's called test optional, which means you don't actually have to submit any ACTs or SAT test scores. Now, we recommend that in the summer after year 12 or autumn of year 13, so before the half-term holiday, you will sit the admissions exam if that is required. Now, choosing between SATs and ACTs, it's basically what you need to consider. You would score better on one or the other. So what we recommend is that you actually take a timed full-length practice test of each type. So there are many free available online. And this is because the content and style of the SAT and ACT are very similar. But it's things like how you handle time pressure and what types of questions that you find most challenging could help you determine which test is better fit for you if you do need to take an admission test. I know from my personal point that I preferred one test over the other. I took both of them, but I actually prefer the way the questions were formed in one test over the other. Okay, so part of the application will be a transcript, and this is a list of your academic qualifications and marks covering years 10 to 13 in England and Wales, years 11 through 14 in Northern Ireland, and S3 through S6 in Scotland. Now, the transcript is generated by your school, but you may need to provide your school or your counselor with information about what to include in a transcript. And you might also have to submit, or your school might also have to submit additional school reports as well. Now, the transcript may include things like years attended, your GCSE scores, and predicted A-level. And keep in mind that there is no direct conversion between UK and US marks. So report your marks in the British system. US universities understand the British system. You do not need to convert your A-levels or GCSE scores to GPA. We actually recommend that that is not done. And like I mentioned, the transcript is typically submitted online by the school. Now, a school report is information that includes just information about the school itself, just to give some context of what kind of school you go to. And we have templates available on our website for both school reports and transcripts as well. Now, as part of your application, you will likely be required to gather 2 to 3 letters of recommendation, and the letters should be a marketing tool for you as an applicant. The referees will have a particular area they could speak to. You might want to direct referees to write about specific things. So for example, like your ability to succeed at university, maybe your past academic performance, maybe your observations about your performance in class or on a specific assignment, if you have any school awards that you won, or if you have great writing and critical thinking skills or a great subject knowledge in a specific subject. Or maybe you've done a lot of work experience. So it's important for your referee to focus on those things. They might also want to write about your ability to positively contribute to the university department or the campus life or the diversity of the university that you're applying to, or maybe your leadership abilities and character, or even things like your involvement in the school and community. Now, it's important that you ask someone who knows you well, both in and out of the classroom. Some universities may provide some loose guidelines for selecting referees. For example, they might ask one letter from a counselor or at least one letter from a teacher. Now, it will generally be your responsibility to choose and liaise with referees and ask them to write your reference letters as well. And keep in mind that there will also be a deadline for this as well. We suggest that you consider meeting with your referee to discuss the letter. And it's in your best interest to help your referees write the best letter they can. Now, you may wish to schedule a meeting to actually discuss your reasons for doing an undergraduate degree in the US or a particular institution or university. Maybe you want to discuss your future goals or your academic achievements or even your extracurricular involvement. You know, some teachers might not know everything that you're involved in outside of school. So make sure your referee is aware of any deadlines and paperwork to complete. And remember, it's your responsibility to inform them of the deadlines and paperwork required. And feel free to encourage your referees to avoid being restrained and too modest. After all, this is a reference letter to America. So American referees tend to write in a very enthusiastic tone. They will use very positive and descriptive language. And they will discuss the applicant both in and out of the classroom and talk about the applicant personality. So they won't just talk about their grades and how well they do in school. They will talk about who the applicant is as a person. And keep in mind that what will be written about your American counterparts when preparing your UK referees to write their letters. Typically, the reference letters in the UK are a bit more held back and refrained than references in the US. So encourage your referees to refrain from using restrained or modest language. This is the time for them to boast about you. Okay, another part of the application is an essay or essays. Now, this is one of the most important part of the application process for undergraduate study in the US. Strong essays can actually set your application apart from other applicants. And this gives you an opportunity to showcase yourself to the university. So the essays are not like your UCAS personal statements. So rather than submitting an explanation of your interests and achievements in a particular field of study, like you would in UCAS, you will actually be asked to respond to between 1 and 3 essay questions on the US university application. Now, each university will set its own questions, and they will also set the desired length of your response. Now, on the Common App system, there will be 1 essay question that goes out to all the universities that you apply to. And then you will have different supplemental questions, which are unique to each institution. So an example of a Common App essay is reflect on a time when you questioned or challenged a belief or idea. What prompted you to think? What was the outcome? Or describe a topic, idea, or concept you find so engaging that it makes you lose all track of time. Why did it captivate you? what or who do you turn to when you want to learn more? So that might be, those might be some of the questions that you might have to answer. And then each university might ask a shorter question to answer, which are your supplementary essays as well. So it's unlikely that you will be able to compose one essay that will sufficiently answer questions posed by multiple universities. But you might be able to use or reuse some of the elements of essays for different universities. Just make sure if you do that to make you double check that you don't send an essay to, I don't know, University of Chicago and it actually has NYU somewhere in the essay. Okay, so some writing tips for your essay. Make sure that you address the question fully. Use clear and concise language and try to avoid any vague or empty statements or even cliches. Once again, if you reuse any part of an essay, be careful to submit the correct essay to the correct university and double check that all references within the text are to the correct university. Make sure that you proofread extensively and actually ask someone else to proofread your essays as well and offer their feedback. The most important tip is to be yourself. So don't give the admissions officer the answers you think they want to hear, but give them the truth. They want to get to know you in this essay. They want to know what sets you apart. So make sure that your personality comes through in the essay. We have a lot more tips on writing the essays on our website, and we actually have links to example essays on different university websites as well. So I definitely recommend that if you're in the process of writing the essay, make sure you check out all our tips and examples of good essays. It might kind of give you an idea of how you need to write it. Okay, so besides going to the US for studying your undergraduate degrees, there's also other opportunities in the US that you might not have thought of. So the few different opportunities, if you decide a full undergraduate degree in the US is not for you, is you could actually go to the US while at a UK university through the university exchange programs. Many UK universities have established exchange programs with US universities or US-based study abroad programs. So for example, University of Manchester has a partnership with 18 different universities in the US. And logistically, it's simpler as your university will actually help arrange for you to go study abroad for a year. You also have a variety of summer institutes. So there's the study of the US Institute for Student Leaders that are intensive short programs. They're academic programs, and the purpose is to provide groups of undergraduate student leaders with a deeper understanding of the United States while simultaneously enhancing their leadership skills. Or if you really love America, you could spend your degree studying there. So American studies, you could spend your degree studying it. American studies programs often incorporate a year in the US as well. I believe there's one in Winchester University. I'm not sure of other universities in the UK, but I know Winchester University does American studies as a bachelor's degree. There's also opportunities for internships or summer work, so through BUNAC or Camp America. And another option is actually to do your postgraduate study there instead. So we also have Fulbright awards for this, and we have advice on our website on the postgraduate level page as well. Oh, sorry. Some other ways that we can help. We run the Sutton Trust US program. So this is in partnership with the Social Mobility program in the UK called the Sutton Trust. And this is a program for high achieving year 12 students from low income families. It's a 2-year program. In the first year, you get to visit US universities for a week on the East Coast. This is a fully funded program, so students that are on the program do not have to pay anything to be part of this. In the second year of the program, we support all the students in applying for their undergraduate study in the US. And like I said, this is completely free for students that are accepted. The program is currently open now. So if you're a year 12 student from a low income family, if you go on our website, there's information on how to apply to the program or how to see if you're eligible to apply to the program. The application is just opened, I believe, actually today. We have a lot of free advice on our website, including guides and different events that we do throughout the year. Under Education USA advice, we have undergraduate study in the US with details on choosing funding and applying. And in the Our Program section, there's details about the Sutton Trust program as well as link to check if you're eligible to apply to it. We also offer one-to-one video appointments with an advisor. You could book that on our website as well. And we take questions by email. So our email is advising@fulbright.org.uk. And you could reach out to us at any time if you have any questions as you go along through the process of applying to US universities. We also have events about studying in the US online and in person. So we have various events throughout the year. We had one about community colleges about 2 weeks ago, and there's a couple more coming out in the new year as well. And each year we have our US College Day, which takes place in September. So we'll have our next one in September of 2024. It's a free event to attend. You just have to book a time slot, so you just have to register for it. We have over 120 US universities and exhibitors at the event, and students, parents, teachers are free. It's free to attend. Registrations for tickets open in the late summer. So our next event will be September 2024. Okay, that's it for now. If there are any questions, please pop them in the Q&A box. And just a reminder that the recording will be sent off to everyone next week and will be available for your viewing. There's one question. It just says, I'm still confused about the timeline. Can you elaborate? So the timeline, what we suggest is that if you're currently in year 13, you would apply to universities now. The application for regular admissions in the US closes usually mid-January to late January. Some universities have it open till February, so you'd have to check on the website. But the application is basically the timeline for application is similar to UK. So applications for US universities open in August and they close in mid to late January. In regards to doing your research, we recommend that you start researching universities at the end of year 12. That way it gives you plenty of time to have your 6 to 10 universities ready to apply from September, October, or November time. And then you should receive information from university if you got accepted or not about May time, which then gives you enough time to apply for your visa and basically start universities late August, early September. Okay, I have a question. Why can't you do an undergraduate degree in law or medicine in the US? That's a very good question. The reason for that is both medicine and law are quite tough degrees in the US, especially medicine. They want to make sure that the students are ready for both degrees. So they make you go to university first to kind of explore if that is definitely a degree that you want to follow. Okay, I'm gonna wait a couple more minutes to see if there are any more questions. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any more questions. If anyone does have any questions, I'm just gonna pop in our email address in the chat. So you could always email us, or on our website, we have a link to book an appointment as well. Oh, sorry, there is one question. Okay, so this is related to medicine or law. It says, so do you have to do an undergrad in the UK first? Yes, if you want to do law or medicine, we recommend that you do an undergrad in the UK first and then transfer to the US. But keep in mind, just because you do medicine or you study medicine in the postgrad in the US or law in postgrad in the US, it doesn't give you the right to work there. And it also might not give you the right to work in the UK in medicine or law. So it's a bit more complicated. If you need any more information, you could email us and I could give you more information so that it kind of makes more sense. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you guys have a very good evening and hopefully stay nice and dry. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.